Thank you. Thank you. And thank you. What a tremendous opportunity to be able to speak with you and share with you today our day of celebration of 30 years and hear of all the fantastic achievements that you've all made. So I'm going to start with a question. Who likes cricket? Come on, hands up. Who likes cricket? There must be more than that. I am in India. Come on, I would have thought I would have seen every hand up. They're a bit more passionate than that. Okay, who remembers a cricketer called Glenn McGrath? Right, that got more enthusiasm than the first question. Why am I talking about Glenn McGrath? Well, one third question. Who has a photo of themselves with Glenn McGrath? Last year, I got to go to a conference with Glenn McGrath and talk about what I'm talking to you guys today. He also spoke at that conference, and afterwards, of course, like any fan, can I have a photo, please? So I have a photo on my phone with Glenn McGrath, so you're almost the same now. Why was Glenn McGrath so good as a cricketer, and why was he talking at a science conference? What could he do so brilliantly well? He could bowl the ball and land it on that spot time and time and time again, right? That was his skill. I could appreciate it because I'm a left-handed spin bowler and my balls went anywhere. Sometimes I'll get a wicket just because I was surprised that it was on the right spot. His precision, his work, his drive, that's what made him a successful cricketer. Right? Sounds similar to a scientist, doesn't it? Precision, work and drive. They're all skills that we need too as scientists. So there's a similarity between sport and cricket. It's also an incredibly competitive profession. It's challenging. We have bad days and good days as scientists. We have terrible times when nothing works. Cricketers feel the same too. Remember when they go through those losing runs, right? When teams get done, when players get sacked off their teams, it's a tough game. It's a tough gig. But science has its highs just like cricket has its highs, and it's thinking about those highs through those tough times that keeps us going on. It's also thinking about our goals. For a cricketer, it's to beat India. An admirable goal, which we can only occasionally do. It's taken us 11 years to do it recently. For a scientist, it's to make an impact. And what I want to talk today is about the ways we can make an impact and make a difference. And that gives us the second reason why Glenn McGrath was at this conference. As many as you know, his wife passed away with breast cancer. A tragic event that many of us face. What did he do? He turned that into something different. He turned a loss into an opportunity to raise funds, to establish breast care programs in Australia that have made a tremendous impact. And just this year has expanded it to be programs beyond. And that is taking science, how to treat breast cancer, through to nursing and application, how to help people. And again, there's similar principles there to what we're trying to do as scientists, right? There's things we can think about. So where I want to go to today is talk to you about the work we've been doing in Australia as a team of people. This is not just me, this is a large project. But giving you some principles to think about how to do research that has impact, as you're already doing here, and what is needed to have impact. So, this is something we all know. Climate change isn't just hotter and drier. It means more temperature extremes, hot and cold, more variable rainfall, longer, harsher droughts, and as we've just seen today, shorter, intense flooding events at the times we don't normally expect to see them. So climate change means much more variability and much more harsher climates. So the solutions aren't as straightforward as just making a drought-tolerant plant or a heat-tolerant plant. There's many different facets to thinking about those solutions. And when we think about those solutions, we need to think about the system as a whole. And this has been the brilliance of this conference we've been at this week. We've been thinking about the system of high altitude plants and what's needed from the genes through the ecosystems, through what's below the ground, what's above the ground, and what brings the whole system together to enable these incredible plants to survive at such extreme environments. And isn't it just remarkable when you think about that? You know, we sit in our air-conditioned rooms, even then we've still got jumpers on, the plants are out there at these ridiculous elevations, surviving and growing. Right? That ability to adapt and acclimate is there. It's taken billions of years to evolve. Our challenge now is, as a society, how are we going to maintain that? Obviously, the best thing to do is to stop releasing carbon dioxide, but in addition, we still have to solve the problems we're facing today in natural ecosystems and farming ecosystems. We need to think about ways that will make a difference. And as a crop scientist, one big question for me is how do we change that trade-off between yield and resilience? We can make plants very tough, right? They can be very drought tolerant. We can just close their stomata. Then they won't use water, but then they can't do photosynthesis. Okay? We've got to find a balance. We've got to balance things to be able to get to that level where we can optimize that plant for that environment. And as we move into these high altitude environments, you guys here face a different set of challenges. How do you create plants that can survive extreme environments? They're getting more and more variable. We've talked this week about the need to make more plastic plants that can respond to different environments. We've talked the need about to enable them to have an environment and the bacteria and fungi around it that can help them grow. We need to think about what are the other strategies we can use, just as we need to do this on a particular plant when we grow it as a crop. So, in today's talk, I want to cover particularly the new breeding technologies or the new genetic technologies as an example of the suite of tools we need. If we're going to solve the problems we're facing, it's not going to be one solution. It's not going to be one tool. We need every single tool in our toolbox to work together. And my final cricket analogy, why was Glenn McGrath also great? He was part of a great team in Australia's cricket history. It wasn't just him as a bowler that made it great. Every other bowler was great, so the pressure was always on. The batsmen were great in that era too. That was Australia's best team. Team, and that's another trait of a scientist, isn't it? We don't work as individuals anymore. And with the most pressing problems facing humanity we've ever faced, it's only going to be working as a team, not competing with each other, but thinking how to work together. So, going back to the toolbox analogy, a builder doesn't leave the hammer at home and only take the wrench or the spanner. The builder takes the hammer with him. So we need a suite of tools and we need to bring all of them into play. And so what I'll do is cover what these technologies are, what are the opportunities for them, and something as scientists we don't often think, how important it is for us to engage with the broader community about these technologies. So, on the science side, traditional breeding, we still need it. We will continue to do it. It will be important going forward. But as we know, it takes a long time, particularly with slow-growing species that are hard to get genetic diversity for. In many modern crops, we've got rid of the genetic diversity. But the big advantage of the gene editing technologies I want to focus on is they bring that timeline down to years rather than decades. And we still need genetic modification, the GMOs. Sometimes genetic modification is seen as a dangerous technology, but it's been around for 4 decades now. We can improve crops to certain levels, but some things we can't bring into a crop, except without making a GMO. And this example here is the Golden Rice Project. I've been on their board for the last decade, having the privilege of working with these wonderful people in the Philippines and also in many other countries about trying to bring forward this as a product. It's a simple technology. It's taking the genes that make carotenoids, the yellow pigment, which are already in rice, and making sure they express in the grain. It makes yellow rice, which is high in vitamin A. It's gone through all the regulatory frameworks, it's gone through all the approval processes, and just want to get the videos to work. I thought I'd do that. There's an embedded video on that. What would be the way I'll make that work? On that one over there. Yep, thanks. And you will know, though, that there's many organisations that are against the release of golden rice, despite the fact that it will save lives. Up to 200,000 children die every year from vitamin A deficiency. And that's what golden rice is saving. So that's the important societal question. Why is part of society so against GMOs? And we as scientists can't just ignore that. We have to think about what that means. At the same time, we have to understand when is that a very small part of society, and when that's a large part of society, as this event was in a small village in one of the Philippines where they first targeted it for release. And it was commercially being taken, and these kids were just dancing there. And then all the villagers came in and sung and danced as well. It was a great event. There's great promise in these technologies, but we need to always balance when we bring a new technology in, that we bring the public along with us. So, is GMO a new technology? It's been around for decades. There's about 100 transgenic crops that have received biosafety recommendations in the past 5 years. This is just within Australia. Things are moving ahead. Sorry, it's not just within Australia, it's global. But what I really want to focus on is less about GMOs, more about CRISPR. So CRISPR, is it all hype? There was 5,000 papers in 2024. Gene editing is underway in more than 40 crops in 25 countries. Huge numbers of articles, and it's also through mainstream media. If you speak to people about it, you will generally, if you talk particularly about CRISPR in relation to human health, there's a chance they've already heard of it. Or RNA, and RNA editing, and also with RNA vaccines. It comes back to the work of these two women here who've received the Nobel Prize for this in 2020. And again, isn't it great to see two female scientists being given the Nobel Prize? We need more of that as well. We need to think about bringing the diversity of the skills of humanity onto our problems. So this is the history of CRISPR. Like many things, many discoveries, who would have thought CRISPR went right back to 1987 and goes right back to finding a few little repeats of DNA in E. coli. Okay, so you're working on E. coli, sequencing